Hello, my Copic and crafty friends. Michelle Houghton here with another episode for our Copic in the Craft Room. I have another printable from Ann Corbiere-Scott. This one, again, she's kind of shifted her style a little bit, and then we're getting this very large block of image. Now, if you cut it apart, you've got a slim line down the left side. Yes, like that. Get that all in there. And we have a standard kind of A2, that 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 over here. But you could also do a bigger block and make it something frame worthy or a larger card. So I'm thinking, I really do like this image. I like the mix of the flowers. I'm thinking I'm going to do the full thing. Just go for it. Now, I don't know that I'm going to be able to do all of that in a reasonable amount of time. So I think what I'm going to do is I definitely want to get each of the styles of flowers. And I've picked out colors for most of them. What I didn't pick out, and I'm just realizing it, is something for some of the leaves. I'm thinking this down here is more of a petal like here. But we do have a few little leaves, and we've got this little bunch right here. So I might need to play around with that a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead. I'll do a little bit from each section, and then I'll try to complete it for kind of the show and tell at the end. As always, Anne has included a couple of sentiments and a smaller one that could be fussy cut and put onto a card. And it includes all of the beautiful pieces that you're seeing above as well. So no matter where you choose to color on this, you're going to get pieces. And even if you decide to do this big block, you could definitely cut it into strips or do something where it's on multiple cards. So I am going to start with these guys, and I kind of picked out a color combination already. I'm focusing in on some violets again. I don't know if you guys have noticed it, but the V040506 has a lot of red in them, and so they sometimes are a little bit tricky to find blending mates for. And you can do just a natural blend, but the V05 in particular has a lot of that red. And so I want to show you an option with V06 being the darkest of the group, going down to V04, and then I'm going to jump and go over to V12. For me, I really like that jump between the V04 and the V12. The other thing that you're going to notice is I am actually coloring on a glass mat today. I'm trying this out. I'm going to probably use it for 2 or 3 videos, and I'll let you know what I'm thinking about it. I have always been a person, because I was told when I started using Copic markers that you should work on a kind of a more flat absorbent surface like just a copy paper. And the debate is out there that that's not the best surface. And so I want to be able to give you my take, for me personally, the pluses and minuses of doing both. Obviously, I'm at a certain point in my coloring, so that will affect how that glass works with me. All right, let's see. Anything else? This is a hammer mill paper, if anyone has a question about that, and I've printed it through my HP printer. This is the very lightweight hammer mill, so it's only 60 pounds, but I've had fairly good luck with that. So we're going to start with the petals on one of these big flowers. So I'm starting with a V06. I picked up the wrong one, sorry. Starting with that V06, and I'm going to go from dark to light. So I am going to flick each of these kind of from the center of that petal outward about halfway. And again, you could always do just a portion of this. So if you're intimidated by keeping all of that wet, it's absolutely okay to say, I'm going to do these 4 and then these 3, or these 3 and then this 4, kind of half and half, or even one petal at a time. One of the nice things about an image like this is there's so much going on. When I bump out just a little bit over here on the left out of that petal, it's not very visible. I'm going to take a step down to V04, and I'm going to start way back And I'm just going to flick for further. Sorry, losing my words there. I might have to focus a little bit on right where that change happens. Now the beauty of this, remember, if I lose some of the darkness of that V06, I can always come back and add a touch more. For right now, I'm trying to extend a slightly lighter color. All right, sorry about that. They are testing our fire alarms in our apartment building today, and they had to come in and test ours. So we'll see if we can pick up where we left off. Unfortunately, we know that that's going to allow that ink to dry a little bit. You can see how much that ink changes as it dries, though. This is a great example of that, kind of side by side. How much that changes. You're going to hear the apartment above me getting rattled a bit as they walk through. So this is back to that V04, kind of my mid-tone. And I'm flicking out beyond, trying to smooth out a little bit. But I do have to go back all the way into that dry ink, or that ink that's drying, or I end up with a watermark. I hope everybody gets that when I say that, what that means. You'd know it if you'd seen it in your own work. Basically, what happens is if I stop, say right here on the petal, I would literally get a spot where there's a distinct line. And once it's there, it's almost impossible to make disappear. Switching to V12, and this one I'm actually going to start at the other end of the petal and work my way back in. Unfortunately, what happens is when that dry ink hits, or wet ink hits the dry, you can sometimes end up creating that watermark. And honest to goodness, ladies and gents, once it's there, it's almost completely impossible to get rid of. It takes so much work. Sometimes you're not going to be successful, period, but it takes so much work that it's probably better use of your time to begin again. Now, I realize there's some projects that we hold near and dear and that we just desperately want to make work. You've spent the time, it's near the end, you really, really want to. And so you can try re-wetting that whole thing and kind of starting over dark, medium, light, or working through from light to dark and back, but you're putting more ink on the page, you're tempting fate a little bit about making more mistakes. So just be cautious of that. Sometimes you just need to start over. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. If nothing else, think of it in terms of you get another round of practice, and that is never a bad thing. I'm going to come back. I'd like to really reinforce that V06. This is really wet now, so the blending is almost completely happening on its own, which makes this a whole lot easier. Might need a little bit of help down in here. And I haven't done any shaping. It's pretty much light at the ends to dark at the center. I'll have to think on that. I might need to add a little bit of little shape. Not so much roundness, but add a little separation. So all I'm doing is I'm running down kind of one edge of the petal. The other way you could do this is if you were using the colored pencils at the end. that'd be another great way to come in and add kind of that push at the very end to really differentiate between those petals. That would give it a little something something too. But I don't always want to just leave it. For me, that was looking pretty flat, and I'm liking this considerably better. I'm not going for realism. That's not what this is about. But I felt like I'd really flattened that image out by leaving it so dark, medium, light. I needed to add something. And I've done pretty well. And then I've got this one poor little petal out here. And I think I'll go ahead and add it on the same side. So it's all to the left, which again, not realistic. I am not going for that. It was more about giving some interest. I like that a ton better though. Yay, yay. Okay. Then I've got this little center, and I picked out 3 E4s, the lightest of which is E44. And I'm going to actually base each of these little caps. And you could do all sorts of fun things with an image like this. You could go really crazy, go all rainbow. Not going quite that far. And then I've got an E47. Make sure this is going to look a little more round, because this part of the flower definitely has kind of a cone, half sphere shape to it. And I'm actually going to blend that. It'll take half a second. I am going to grab, this is an E41. I'm going to lighten this up just a little bit. Got a little darker than I was originally thinking. And then I'll rub off, because my guess is that pulled a little bit of that up. But then I've got an E49. And this is going to come in dots right around. Now, Anne, when she drew these guys, adds little dots. So you can use those as kind of a reference. It comes in at the base, and then I'm going to spread them out as they come up. So there's only going to be a couple of them that happen up in that top center area. Here we go. Now, if you've seen any of my stuff where I texture before, the other option is to come in with something super light. So the E41 was pretty light, but if I use even the E40 and do dots and hold it. So when you go lighter and are going for this kind of textured look, you definitely have to slow down. You can't just dot, dot, dot. You actually have to hold the marker for a few seconds, but you don't have to do this with the colorless blender. That's the one I often do it with. But for something like this, it works really, really well to use something of the same tone. I could use another E, but since the E4s go all the way down to E40, I'm going to do a little pushing with the E40. That ink is getting pushed away from where I'm setting that marker nib tip down. because that alcohol solution, that's what it does. Okay. So that is what these guys are going to look like. That's my group of markers. Set those to the side. Then I've got this really big, beautiful, bold flower. And I thought it'd be really fun to do kind of a peachy yellow color. So I did grab some yellow reds. And I think I'm going to start dark to light again. Keep doing that on these long petals. So I've got a YR65. That is what I'm going to play with to start. I'm going to work from the center, but on this one, I'm going to come out along those kind of veins as well. There we go. That's so it kind of creates this really pretty. I think I'll only do these two bottom to start. This is definitely one of those images you can get lost in a little bit and forget pieces. You can always go back and be like, oops, that's supposed to be this. Thinking I got most of those two though. So let's go with that. Then I've got a YR61. That's going to start again kind of on the darker color and pull in closer, almost making that white area disappear. These are pretty close together, so you're not going to see, doesn't take a whole lot of work. The other thing about flower petals is they have kind of that vein, wrinkly texture to them often. On occasion, you'll have one that's really smooth and kind of almost plasticky looking, but that's not necessarily the norm. Most of them have that feathery, really fragile quality to them. And sometimes if you leave some of those brush strokes showing, I think it actually only creates that feel. All right, I picked out a really light YR. This is a YR000 to finish this one with. It still has that peachy feel that the YR6s has. So that's why this one got the nod. And I really wanted to make a distinct difference and get lighter. And this one pushed it far enough. Now there is a YR quadruple 0. So I could have gone one more step, but this to me was just right. And I thought it would play off of those violets awfully pretty as well. We were actually just talking about this on one of our Copic College Zoom meetings about how to pick colors that really went nicely together, not for blending, but for sitting on a composition together. And that was a really awesome conversation. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and finish this guy up. So let's find the darkest again. YR65. Back into the center. Now the other thing, this one has kind of these big, kind of wide petals. You could decide where they overlap or where it looks like one is coming, like this one comes up and over this one. You could come in and add a really soft kind of blue violet in there, or violet, and kind of create that overlap, that cast shadow. So that would be an option as well. To think about how I'm going to handle the center of this as well. We've got this little kind of stamen coming up. So I haven't thought through all of this. I just picked out the big pieces, which were the flower petals, kind of for the different styles of flowers. And I think I already shared. I missed one, so I'll have to kind of think as I go here about what to do with that one. When this one folds over, let's definitely have to kind of make a game plan there. I think I might leave that portion actually lighter. See how that looks. Here we go. Because that would be another place if we brought a violet in, that would definitely, right underneath where that petal folds, that would definitely need that darker shadow color. Okay. It looks like this is part of one of these big violet flowers. So I'm going to stop there. Yeah. Okay. We've got the VYR. Sorry, YR61. The sleep-deprived Michelle doesn't always keep it all straight. This YR65 and 61 combination, though, I'm going to tell you, it really is just as easy as I'm making this look. It's taking very little effort. And at least initially here, I'm really liking the glass mat. I think this is kind of cool. So I can actually see that my ink is staying wet longer, and I know that the proponents of coloring on glass would tell you that's the biggest advantage. And I can definitely see that that is happening. So let's see, and I want to leave this light, but I'm going to bring this little bit darker color into this outer edge where it's curling over and away from me. YR000, coming right into those white areas and pushing outward. Again, I don't need it completely smooth. I'd rather avoid watermarks if I can. So pushing outward. Trying to catch it before it dries into a watermark if I can see it happening, an edge kind of forming. That was about the right amount though. I'm not really having any trouble getting this to blend. But I think if I tried to do the whole flower, this is a big enough flower that I actually would have struggled to get all of this to blend smoothly. So I would say dividing this at least in half, if not in thirds, just because of the size. So if you're a slower colorer, if you're a little bit more cautious and slow with how you place those marker colors, then you might want to divide this a little more, not do half and half, but maybe do thirds. I'm the first to admit I tend to color fast, but I've been doing it for a while. I'm supposed to make it, I always tell my classes, I'm supposed to make this look easy and fun, tempt you into doing it more and more. That's my job. but it is my job. You have to remember that and give yourself a little bit of grace. Woo, almost fallen off, sorry. So I'm thinking with this one, I really do like that color combo, but I think, what about I literally lost the marker that I'm wanting. Where did it go? No. No. Of course, you put it in your head that this is the one you want, then you can't find it. Well, I'll do something else because it has flown the coop for the moment. All right. So I'm going to go back to my standby and I'm going to test this out. This is where I was playing with colors before I started the video. You can see this is my kind of BV20, which is kind of my go-to. And actually, I don't hate that. So I'm going to stick with this. Now, this is one that you could have put down first and then colored over. I am choosing to come in and go over this. So there might be a couple spots where I need to do a little bit of softening, meaning coming back with some of my YRs. But oh yeah, can you see what that did? Yay, exactly what I was hoping for. So I'm going to come into the center a little bit and really gently. So very light touch. I'm going to flick a little bit out from the center because I definitely want to add some depth there. I'm going to leave this true center piece alone, but on the petals, I'm going to come out a little bit. And then I'm also going to find these spots where it looks like another petal is kind of sitting on the top. Not many of those. These don't overlap a whole lot. Keep spinning so I can find some of the pieces that I'm looking for. But this is actually settling on top pretty gracefully, I would have to say. Here we go. Kind of accentuate some of those long vein pieces. This looks like it's actually push that section back since it's definitely behind these other flowers. I think I'm going to soften. Got one spot. I definitely want to come back. All right, let's see. Right here. It's funny, I spin it and I can feel like I see these other spots that look like they should be behind. So keep spinning, kind of refocus those eyes. Well, and I look at something like this and I think, ooh, that probably was supposed to be left open, so that might change here eventually. The one spot it didn't is I got onto some really light areas right in here. So I'm going to use the lightest marker, I think. See if I can't just melt the edge of that BV20. Just a hair. I don't need much. And I could use the darker color. But I don't necessarily want to make that darker. Yep, just enough. But that gives that a lot of in and out, which I always like. Not totally sure yet on the center here. So let's talk about, and this again, this is going to be one of these petals. So I've got this flower that's going to be those 4 big ones. I've got this, which is also going to reappear here. Now I've got these little guys, and I pulled out just 2 blue violets. Huh. This is the one I was looking for, of course. This is a BV00. In this particular image, more of them are happening as you go lower. So it has this one little cluster of these guys. And then I pulled out a second blue violet. I feel like little bells like this, almost, you see them so often in these beautiful kind of blue violet colors. This is a BV13. So I really want to create that spherical shape on the top, and then there's these little kind of ruffles happening at the bottom. So creating that spherical, and the little ruffles. And I'll definitely need to come back with my lighter on this one. Notice on each of the tops, I have kind of a round highlight area. And that's going to help me get that round shape. That's the type of thing we talk over in Copic 101. And I just opened up that class. If you need information about that, it's on my website. Copic 101, kind of all your true basic beginner information on Copic. If you have taken a Copic college from me before, we went over a lot of that information. So I don't want to necessarily recommend it for you unless you really truly feel like you're still a beginner, that you'd like to hear a lot of that information a second time. I do expand on it, but it's going to be very similar to what we do in that first day of Copic colleges, but it's your beginner, fresh out of the box. I want to learn how to use these markers. I'm going to give myself that strong base of understanding how they work and how to work with them the best. So there's those little blue, kind of blue purple guys. And I'm going to have to decide how big I really want this to be, if I'm going to do smaller cards or a bigger art piece. So, but there's my little 2 BVs, BV00 and BV13. The other one I have plans for is this little guy, these little guys. And they are getting 2 RVs, RV32. And see, I'm going to have all these little sections in between that I'm going to have to decide. And what is that? And you can go dark. You can leave it lighter. You can start with all those background areas, so you don't then have to come back and work around them. All sorts of options. So I'm going to do this section of these little guys. I'm keeping these super, super simple because there's so many of them. So it's not going to be about blending. It's more about laying down a couple colors, and I'm going to do kind of sections of them at a time. I'm coming back with RV34 and flicking. Now I am not trying to stay in the little center of each of those petals, but it is happening. Some of that is because that black line is going to hide a little bit where it's going wider or further out. It's going to disguise that a little bit visually. If I did this in a no line coloring where I printed the image lighter, you would see the shape of my stroke versus that little interior petal that's actually drawn on there. So what I'm doing is just a little like this, and that's what you would see on each of these flowers. But because there is that interior black line, that's kind of what you end up seeing visually. One of the pluses and minuses of leaving those black lines. All right, so there's another set of colors. So then the question's going to be, what have I got left? I've got this guy, and I'll be honest, I'm not totally sure. I'm thinking maybe something a little more blue. So this is actually a blue, but if you have this set, you'll know exactly what set of blues I am picking up. This is a B 63 and B66. I'm actually thinking of doing something similar to what I did with those RVs because this is so small. I'm thinking, what if I do the lightest? And I'm sure all of these, I know with Ann Corbiere-Scott is who designed this image again. And I would tell you, I know her in that I know she's based all of these little flowers on the real deal, real flowers. So there is a flower out there that looks similar to this, just because that's how she works. I don't know what that flower is. Actually, I did this and I'm thinking I probably just need to fill that in because I don't want to come back in between those. No. So I'm going to say that the core of the flower is that lighter color as well, whether it is or not. And then, so that was, sorry, I held on to that the whole time. That was a B63. B66 is next. And that one, I'm going to start right at the point, and I'm going to have to hold my marker pretty vertical. And now we can see those little flicks. I'm going to come right up from that point, which looks like it's from the base, kind of the core, and flick out one. Now, I could soften this, and I'll show you that here in just a second, if you want, because this is pretty distinct. Even if I did this faster, meaning, or did like half of it and then came back and did the other half, you would still have kind of that more distinct actual kind of flick on there. And I'm actually liking that in between to be this darker color a little bit more. As I work through, I'll hit a little bit of that. There we go. So if I'm concerned about the fact that I can see those real distinct little flicks on each one of those, I could go back to my lighter. My concern is that if I go over it, even brush it 2 or 3 times, I'm going to lose that a lot. So let's try this. If I only did 2, does that soften it enough? Not sure. I do like it a little bit softer, so I am going to come back through and see if it doesn't hold on to. Let's do this half. And while it's wet, it's still showing. Go right to the base. Yeah, I'm actually really liking that a little bit softer like that. It doesn't take much to add that pop back in, so I am going to soften the rest of this. And I think maybe doing it half and half would be even better, just keeping that ink wet a little bit more. And my bet is I wouldn't even necessarily need to hit all of those little dots or all those little tips with that dark again, but I'll get as many of them as possible. There we go. Yep, I like that, and it's fun in that mix. Green. Let's see. I definitely don't want a really bright, like screaming green. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to use a YG or if it'd be better. I think I'm actually going to like this better. A little less yellow. See if I can find a good combo. I am going to start with 2 greens. I've got a G94 and a G99. There is not a lot of green on this page. So, and I could debate. This could be a leaf versus here. I'm looking down on this portion, and this actually does look more like a leaf as part of this like bluebell type plant. So maybe I need to adjust here. What if I did both of those combos? So what if come back over here? I could do them all the same color, but they're obviously from a different plant. So I hate to necessarily just lump them all together. Okay, this will have more yellow in it, so hopefully I'm not making a monster mistake here. I'm going to keep the yellow green on the smaller leaf. This is a, sorry, setting down, YG95. And I've left the video kind of shot out a little bit bigger today. So it's not super close, but I figure there's so much going on this one. Maybe you can kind of see how those pieces are interacting together. At least that was my thought in doing it this way. So that was YG95. This is YG93. And there is a YG91, so I could have gone even lighter. However, I'm trying to keep the leaf as kind of understated a little bit. Okay. And then I've got my G9s. And I think we'll do the same thing. We'll do the darker first, which, is this right? I think I put the wrong one. Oh, nope, that is right. G99. This is one that's cap. I don't think is very accurate. I don't know if they've changed that one or not, but it's considerably darker. I lose it in my bag because I'm looking. Like, where's the, I know there's a 9.9, where is it? And it's, I mean, look at, the 9.4 is actually almost darker than the 9.9 cap wise. That is definitely not what the markers are doing. So doing the similar to that big leafy peachy flower. But I think after looking at this other portion, I think this actually goes with those little bluebell, delicate bluebell-like guys. Go behind a little bit on this. Say that that's what's back there. There's actually a line right there. So that might be the edge of the leaf. We're going to say it is today. And then G94. But you'll notice this one is definitely lighter. To me, both the lighter in that YG9 series and this one as well almost look like they have more blue in them. Both of them, even the YG, to me looks like it's got a little more blue in the mix. Kind of nice not to have the bright green foliage though. I think it kind of sets it in and back a little bit with the cooler, more desaturated tones. Kind of fun. All right. So that gives you all the pieces. Got a little group of YRs, RVs. We've got a BV, a V, one earth tone, B, G, and YG. So we actually have a ton of color families represented in this fairly small space. But I really am liking the look of how they go together. And that was the goal, to see if I could take, I still wanted different colors. I wanted that fun, vivid bouquet feel. And yet I didn't want to make it, you know, so glaring. Anyway, I'm pretty excited about this. So I'm going to go through, I will see if I can finish it up for you so I can put a photo at the end of the video. But other than that, that is what I'm doing. So there's a lot of things changing at my blog. I now have the digital images that I'm adding to the collection. There's a lot of butterflies right now, but I'm going to be adding some other things as well. I have a new online class, Copic 101, for beginners and people who really want to learn the basics of Copic markers. And then Copic College, that's online right now. You only have about a month and a half left for that to purchase. Once you've purchased it, you have access to the materials forever, but I am not leaving it for sale forever. It will end May 31st. So if you're interested in that one or have been, now is the time to get on there and find out about that. But I'm trying to make my blog a little more user-friendly, and so that might mean at some point really changing the look of that. That hasn't happened yet, but I'm slowly and surely kind of piecing together how I want to kind of continue. So be patient with me there. I know there will be some glitches, but I always appreciate you stopping by and watching me color and listen to me chitter chatter. I hope each and every one of you is doing well. Have a happy, colorful day.